everybody. Welcome back to the Magnetic Podcast. Super excited today to have on Eli, co-founder at POSH. Eli, thank you so much for jumping on.
Happy to be here. Let's do it.
So first and foremost, Eli, would love to get just like a brief background on yourself and what brought you here today.
Yeah, so I'm Eli. I grew up in Westchester County in a small village called Portchester. Was really passionate about photo video growing up and YouTube. And I ended up shooting like a bunch of music videos for rappers in high school. And that's like the first kind of business I started. And then on the side, I was also learning how to code just by watching YouTube. And so then I used my coding skills to like make a site where people could book me for rap music videos. And then eventually that transitioned into having my own startup in high school. And then I used the rap music videos to get into NYU for film. And then when I got to NYU, I met my co-founder of the company I'm working on now, POSH, which is like an event management and marketing software. And that's what I'm doing now.
And you had an interesting kind of path to POSH when it went from NYU. Like, tell me a little bit about kind of what led to the build up to starting an events management platform. How does that happen?
Yeah, we were both Avante, my co-founder, and I were just super passionate about the nightlife space. I was doing a lot of, like I was saying, photo, video, helping people do like recaps of their parties. He was doing a lot more DJing. And so we started throwing parties like so before that we met because I was shooting one of his DJ sets. But then we started throwing parties for, young professionals in the New York City area. We were trying to do something more upscale and unique than like the trashy, like college vibe. And it went super well. And then we were just really like not happy with the available ticketing platforms like Eventbrite and Night Out and all these other platforms that we were using didn't have great marketing tools and we couldn't put our branding on them. So since I could code, I thought, let me just build out something custom for us, and did that totally just for fun. And I thought it would be really cool if there was like a social aspect where you could see who was going and all this stuff. So I just built out like a single landing page for one of our parties. People loved it, started doing it for every party. And then COVID hit, so we couldn't throw any more parties. And so we decided to build out that little MVP I had made into a full platform that anyone could use.
That's really cool. I think software is fun for me. I came from a finance background, and one of the best parts about software is talking to people like yourself, talking to people on this show, because everybody has just like a very different path. It feels like in software, whereas in finance, it feels like you can kind of guess what led them to becoming an investment banker or an analyst or an associate. So I think that's always an exciting part of like building software is it's such a dynamic and creative industry that you get a lot of dynamic and creative people.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So when you're talking about coming into a space like events, I think that's really interesting to me. You guys saw a gap in the market. You decided to build it. How was that challenge though going up against, because I'm thinking of like Ticketmaster, StubHub as big players in that space. How do you compete in kind of a well-established place with big powerhouses like that?
Great question. I think a few things. You don't compete in the beginning. Like you find a niche that's really easy to grab. So we started in a very, very specific niche, which was like 200 to 400 person New York City house music parties. And like we built out the best product for that user and like independent event organizers only. And then from there, over the last 3 to 4 years, we've expanded into all these other niches. And now we're more like the default platform in major cities for like 200 to 2,000 people for tons of different genres of music. Still kind of like staying within the music niche. But yeah, I'd say like Ticketmaster, like on the PR end, we kind of angle it that we're going up against them. We aren't really quite yet. They're just like in a different segment of the market. We do have direct competitors that we're fighting against. And I'd say like our biggest competitive edge so far actually hasn't been the tech and has more just been branding. All of the branding for a lot of our a lot of the other competitors was very like enterprise and boring, and it just didn't feel like the person that had made the platform understood who an organizer is. And since Avante and I were organizers and all of our friends are organizers, like we built something that would feel like home for these people, for us. And yeah, I think branding has been like one of the biggest edges.
And the other thing too is when I read through a lot of Posh's content, and I know I work with Jake as well. I know you've worked with in the past. There is a big sense of like the importance of community and kind of what you've built around the Posh brand as more than just technology, but sort of encompassing the element of what you guys stand for in your kind of culture and tone and style. I'm curious, like, how do you think about that word community, and how has it really been a big part of what you've built at Posh?
Mm. Yeah, we think about community all the time. It's definitely a key word for us as well. To me, like community is there's a community internally with Posh. There's a community with so we're a double-sided marketplace. So we have a community within our organizers, and then we also have a community that encompasses the organizers and our attendees. And then each organizer has their own community that they're using Posh to cultivate and like re-engage with their attendees. So I think of it as like this massive Venn diagram of like all these circles that are kind of overlapping with each other. And then there's one big circle that is the Posh community. Tomorrow, or actually tonight, we're hosting a dinner where we're having like a ton of investors, organizers, users all come. And I think just going back to branding, like community to me is feeling a part of like this brand or religion where you identify with whatever like the overarching mission and values and even aesthetic of something is. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to like sum it all up in one way, but yeah, that's how I think about community.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think community is and we talk about it all the time on here. I think community, and I've said this many times, it's hard to define because I think it stems from a lot of different things. It's more of like an outcome that comes from a lot of other pieces. So when people go out and try to start with community, they oftentimes fail because it's ultimately it's an outcome of how you're treating your customers, how your customers experience you, the way you talk to them, the way your brand walks. Then comes the kind of following that stems from that. So I think your point is exactly right. And I think a lot of brands get that wrong though, when they start the charge with community first and then all the other stuff second.
Totally. Outcome is a really great word for it. I didn't think of that. That's cool.
And so with that, knowing your focus is on community, how does that help you as you guys start to really scale? Because initially Posh, right, you had sort of this niche. Let me actually start there. That's a better question, I think, is you guys started in the nightclub scene in New York, very specific, built a product that people loved. How do you take that and expand it to now what Posh is today? Like, what does that look like going from small niche to now, a much more global expansion around different types of events?
Yeah, I think building like a customer-led product is super like natural process, honestly. Like it's not like we sat down one day and we're like, okay, now we're going to do comedy events too, or now we're going to go from house music events to hip hop events. Like it kind of gradually did that on its own, where we got new customers, they request a feature set. And then how we do it is internally, we kind of have like a point system. So we can see how many times something has been requested both by a customer or even by a team member that's just flagging it and thinks it would be something cool for the product. And so when something gets super upvoted, it becomes more urgent, obviously. And so then we are going to build it a lot sooner. And really the first 2 years of building Posh was like completely customer driven growth or customer driven development. So like we're literally just listening to feature requests, building those out as fast as we could. Now we come up with more like proprietary features and try to, like synthesize pain points into features that like a customer couldn't really think of and hasn't existed before, because I think that's where real innovation happens. But before we got to that point, it's literally just building for the customer, constantly listening to what they want and trying to give them features as fast as they can. And that naturally expanded us from the niche we were building for to other stuff. So I guess like an example would be We have a payment plans feature, so organizers can allow their attendees to pay for a large order over like several months. And once we started talking to like independent music festivals, that was something that all of them requested. And then some of them requested the ability to edit the amount that the first down payment could be instead of having it evenly split across multiple installments. And a bunch of other festivals thought that would be cool. And so then we built that out.
That's really cool. I'm wondering, like, when I hear you talk about customer-led growth or customer-led product, right? In your case, I think it's a little bit of both. What, how do you manage the age-old question around like when do you listen to customers and when do you not?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am not an expert. Again, I'm just like a college dropout who's learning as I go. So I'm sure that like someone who's been more, classically trained, um, or maybe not classically trained, but just has had several exits or something like that would have a different answer than me. Um, I think our answer has been like, so what I was just saying was initially, I think you can listen to a customer and they'll just tell you exactly what a feature needs to be and what it would include. And then that kind of transforms more into like high level pain points. So now we're at the point where you listen to 50 customers and maybe they do describe some feature, but you don't like bias yourself by asking them exactly what they want. You more are like trying to get to the bottom of this overarching thing that a lot of people are experiencing. So you are asking for better like Facebook pixel tracking tools, and another customer is asking for a better way to text blast their attendees, and then another customer is asking for a way to feature their events on a marketplace. And maybe the underlying problem is just like, hey, you're all having trouble acquiring new attendees for your events. And so we need some type of new like viral growth tool for the organizers to use. So I think now we're moving more into trying to like do customer interviews in a way where we're getting to this like deep rooted pain point that we can address, and then thinking of really creative new features that haven't been done by any other competitor platform. And like giving the customer that magic moment of like, holy shit, this solved like this massive problem I was dealing with. Not just, oh, they built out this little thing that I was talking about, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. And to your original point, like I appreciate your humility in answering that. But I do think that, and maybe you disagree, but I think that a lot of change is happening in software. I think a lot of change is happening in a lot of different industries. This podcast specifically is a lot of e-commerce brands, but I think there's some similar trends. And this idea of like community-led growth, which includes, right, your product changing. I think that's something that's people are going to start taking another look at. So to your point, right, there's people that have built massive, massive companies, they've sold them, and they have an opinion about, hey, here's how you kind of go about customer feedback and when to implement, when to not. In my opinion, I think that there's a new angle to that equation where now by letting the customer feel like they're a part of the product, you're developing sort of this like ownership connection between your customers and your brand that I think is something that hasn't been necessarily prioritized as much in the past as it is now, when we're in a culture of really people longing for those connections, people longing for that community. So I almost like your input even more so, because I do think we're going to start to see some of those things being prioritized more in software builders for the future, future founders.
Totally. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think, yeah, I agree that it's about the customer feeling a part of the product. I think for us, sometimes the product is the brand. And that's what I was saying before about where the customer also needs to identify and feel like they're part of the brand. I think what's been interesting recently is like, as we're seeing this transition to like short form content and software companies being so concerned with their social media presence, like one thing that we've been doing is collaborating with a bunch of our customers and making content with them. And that gives them that feeling that you're talking about of being a part of the product and brand even more so, where now like the POSH brand literally is what our, like who our customers are and content that we've made collaboratively with them. So it brings that to a whole new level.
Do you have a good example, if you don't mind sharing, of some of that content that you've created, co-created with some of your customers?
Yeah, we have a podcast that we shoot with a bunch of our customers where we'll just interview them about their story. But we've also been experimenting with like classic New York City street interview content, where we kind of tease like an upcoming event or ask questions that are synonymous with nightlife and stuff like that. Yeah, we're in like the experimental phase still, but I think the podcast has done really well. And then yeah, we're doing more short form stuff now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's cool because I think the co-creation word, a lot of times people assume it means co-creation of the product, but it can also be other parts, right? Like you guys are doing right now, co-creation of the marketing or the go-to-market side as well, which I think is really cool. Let me ask you this. So you mentioned before focusing on building a connection between product and brand. And in e-commerce, this is hyper important because every product's becoming commoditized. Not every product, obviously, but it's easier than ever to create, in the same way it's easier than ever to create software. Physical products, it's now becoming easier than ever to create a Lululemon sort of knockoff that's probably the same, if not better quality. And so e-commerce brands specifically really trying to tackle that like brand to product connection, moving it from, hey, we sell leggings to, hey, we sell lifestyle choices that are healthy. How do you, knowing that that's important to you, connecting the brand to the product, how does POSH balance that and how does POSH accomplish that?
How do we accomplish like being unique as a brand, you're saying, or?
More so like when you had talked about, hey, it's not just about making them feel connected to the product, it's about making them connected to POSH as a brand. I was curious if there's any like tactical ways that you guys do that, whether it's in your marketing, whether it's in the product feedback loop, like more so just wondering if there's a way that you guys specifically make sure that you're not just tying customer to product, but also customer to POSH as a brand.
A lot of stuff that's outside of the software. So like physical merchandise, in-person activations is huge. So like us throwing our own events, being just super accessible. Like most of our top customers, I should say, not only are looped in like with our support and success guys, but actually have Avante and I's phone number and just text us direct product feedback, or we'll go hang out with them. We have a rewards program that includes like dinners with our team. So once you reach a certain level on POSH, you actually like go out with the team and hang out with them. But I think the hot take is like in the macro, I actually think that branding, like what you were getting at with any new Lululemon product can pop up, is I think branding for the most part will be the only like product defensibility moat in the future. And what I mean by that is like Jake and I always talk about liquid death, but how liquid death doesn't have any actual product that's like innovate. It's literally just water is the product, but brand is what people are buying into. I think it's going to get so fucked to a point where like sort of how you were saying, anyone can go make a website. Anyone can use AI to make content, do their marketing. And it's going to get to the point where innovation is so hard to achieve because everyone has the same exact tools at their fingertips. And in a great way, education is also so much more accessible. Like 20 years ago, to get into software, you couldn't like hop on YouTube and for free have a 60-hour, incredible course on how to like learn JavaScript or something like that. Like, sure, there's books, but you still have to have money you basically had to have money or have like accessibility to school or the right people. And now it's just been completely democratized. And I think what we're going to see over the next 10 years is like brand and building a large brand is going to be the only way to differentiate anything, because building products is just going to be so democratized and accessible to everyone. And obviously there'll be, at the forefront of technology, like deep tech probably won't be democratized. And I think deep tech will still be hard to touch and like get to. But I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but I think we're going to get to a point where branding is really the only differentiator between products.
Yeah, I completely agree. I work a lot in AI, personally, and the more that I learn about that tool, the more that I realize like it's already past my level of knowledge. And mind you, I'm not like a crazy smart person or anything, but if AI is already extremely smarter than me, I'm sure it's smarter than a lot of people. And so once people tap into that, they're going to be able to create things that are just as good, if not better than I can across the board, regardless of necessarily how crazy your education is or how much experience you have. So I completely agree with you. And I think that the moat that you're talking about from technological innovation or just innovation in general, there'll still be a moat, but I think it's going to be like a sliver, right? Where it's like you innovate, boom, copied tomorrow. Instead of like usually copying would take, a year or something. Now copying's just like, boom, I've already optimized my AI to just copy your brand and get it going the next day. So where are people going to spend their money then if it's not on like pushing the limits of innovation? It's going to be pushing the limits of like branding, connection, fostering like relationships with customers, because I think that's going to be the tether that keeps people. One of the things I wanted to jump in on, POSH is obviously in events. You guys, that's your world. That's your bread and butter. That's amazing because I think every e-commerce brand right now is trying to understand how do they fit events into their strategy. So as an expert in events, how do you recommend brands start to like approach the idea of running an event? I know that's a broad question, but would love to just get your input on e-commerce brands listening. Like, where do you start when it comes to an event?
Totally. Well, first of all, experiential marketing, if you look up stats on it, is like not only one of the most, it's one of the most powerful and one of the most important marketing channels for any brand. I think it's like crucial if you want to connect with your customers to have some type of in-person activations going on, whether it's like on a monthly or a quarterly cadence. I think the best way for a brand that wants to get into experiential marketing for the first time to do so is intimate dinners. I think that's worked really well for us. Jake has done a lot of that too. It gives you a way where it's like, it's fun and it's vibey, but you're actually making genuine connections with people as opposed to like a loud bar party or like a massive conference. I think the like 10 to 20 people sharing food together is a like breaking bread together in general is always going to be an intimate experience. But I think in a dinner setting, it's also just like more easy for people to open up because there's something to do besides just talking. And it's like an easy conversation starter. I don't know. I would say dinners, they're also like on the production end of things, on the way easier end of production. So if you're a company with like not a ton of money, you can literally just do pizza or something like that. And you don't need to hire a DJ or hire like someone to build some setup, or I don't know. It's easy, it's accessible, it's enjoyable for everyone. And I would also say that the magic part of experiential marketing is letting the customer identify with your brand and not talking about the product at all at these in-person activations. So like you shouldn't be trying to sell them on some feature set or like anything to do with your product and advertising that should not be at the in-person activation. I think the customer should walk away being like, oh my God, I love this brand. I love like whatever team member or founder I met from the brand. And I want to somehow, be a part of this or talk to them more. Not like, oh, I've just got like these features shoved down my throat for the last 2 hours. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best advice I've heard so far. Is it's simple and it's tactical. I think one of the problems with giving advice around events is every company's different. So it's like, oh, we're a golf brand, we're a sports brand, we're a leggings brand, we're selling scooters, we're selling whatever. So it's hard to talk to brands and say, hey, here's the event strategy, because frankly, that could just look super different. But I love what you said, where it's like start with dinners, because everyone loves food and everyone loves to get free food. So that to me is a home run. I love that.
Totally.
When it comes to scaling from dinners, what was next for POSH? Like was it really just like scaling the dinners, or was there kind of a next level to that?
We actually did the complete opposite. We Avante and I have thrown like massive events. Like we did one in LA that was like a POSH Gold event for 500 kids. big DJ, and like it grew our brand on the end user side, but like just from an ROI perspective, like without getting too into numbers, that was tens of thousands of dollars to put on. We flew out there, like booking a big DJ is a huge headache and super stressful. And then we started doing the intimate dinners. We did a dinner in New York a few months ago. The amount of incredible connections that I left that dinner with for a tenth of the stress that it took to throw the big event, almost no production. It was literally just like a peer space that we booked out. We got a 6 chef, and that was pretty much it, and a bartender. Was so much more impactful for everyone. And we had organizers leaving that said they had an incredible night. They got connected with like a new photographer that they could use, or some of them were going to use the chef for their next event. They met organizers that they can cross promote with. Now they know the POSH team. Like we provided a ton of value for them, as opposed to like, oh, come get trashed and see this DJ, and that's the POSH brand. So it also communicates the brand in this more like upscale, tangible, valuable way, which I thought was really sick. So to answer your question, we actually like kind of downscaled, and we stopped doing the so this week is actually POSH week, and we're throwing 3 events. All 3 are super intimate. Tonight, Thursday, is a dinner. Friday night is a super intimate, like speakeasy setting. And then Saturday is the same thing. No phones, actually, more intimate club dance vibes. So we're still doing some of the like dancey party stuff, but now we're really honed in on intimate, exclusive, more like conversational experiences.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm thinking of that analogy of like a mile wide and an inch deep, if you've heard of that, where it seems to me like if you're trying to build community, create connection, you're better off going an inch deep, an inch wide, mile deep, and create like at least one super fan, rather than talking to 100 people that, you know, it's brushing the surface and there's never really any action. Because I think that's where, to me, I think that's where the fall off is with events. Because I've done a ton of events, not just, you know, not so much with Nifty Bridge, but when I was at Klaviyo in HubSpot. HubSpot has inbound.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know you were at Klaviyo.
Yeah. So I was at Klaviyo for 3 years. That's kind of why I fell in love with e-commerce, just talking to founders all the time. But man, like we would go to these events and it would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we would really go, it felt like in a lot of the times, a mile wide and an inch deep. You know, they'd stop by the booth, they'd say hello. But then when we did these intimate dinners afterwards, every single one of those person was converting into a customer, if not a really solid lead. So I was always, every time I would come back from those conferences, I would think about how much money they spent, which I won't say, but I'm sure you know, because you've been doing this, astronomical, where it's like, dang, they could have thrown like 2,000 dinners across the US.
Yeah.
So that definitely resonates with me. And I think that's something that still shocks me today, how much money brands spend just to get eyes, when in reality, is it eyes or is it action? You know, I think, yeah, I would go with action over eyes for a lot of brands. Obviously, I've never run a big company, so it's different, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And it makes sense that like, I think the problem is that some brands are putting their entire marketing funnel within the experiential marketing medium when it should be spread out across multiple mediums. So like a conference is really good for top of funnel awareness, but there's like, you could get your cost per lead down way more if you're doing top of funnel through like a paid ad channel and then funneling people as they get into the pipeline into the dinner. And that's more of like bottom of funnel actually closing them. So yeah, I think like I would get why a Klaviyo or like some Fortune 500 brand that does have just like millions of dollars to piss away would do some big event just as like another top of funnel mechanism. But yeah, when you're a smaller business or you're early stage, it really makes no sense. And the ROI like per customer is just going to be so much greater when you're doing something intimate.
Yeah, and actually, this reminds me too. So there's a company called Attentive. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do SMS. They're big. They're competitive with Klaviyo. And one of the things they did early on, because I got to see kind of Klaviyo, I got to be when they were at 200 employees, got to see them grow, which was awesome. Attentive, I got to kind of see come in as the scrappy startup and then explode just with SMS. And one of the things they did that I loved was they would give their customers, at first I was like, that's so stupid. They would give their like customers like AirPods and stuff.
Mm.
Like just like gifts, right? Like, and I would talk to attentive customers and I'd be like, hey, you got to get on Klaviyo. It's a better tool. And a lot of them be like, yeah, I agree. Like it would be nice to manage email and SMS and have it all under one roof. I think there's benefits there. And I was like, okay, well, like let's make it happen. And they're like, well, attentive, they treat us really well and they gave us AirPods. And I'm like, but hey, it works. And hats off to those guys at Attentive because they were really good at treating customers really well and building that relationship. And it worked. Obviously now they're fairly substantially large company. So I love Klaviyo, but I think Attentive took a really unique approach that I thought was kind of silly, but in reality, it created really passionate advocates for them.
Yeah. Yeah, gifting is always good for sure.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit. Have you seen the new Vision Pros? Have you used those?
I tried it super briefly at a friend's house. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious to get your thoughts because I know we're on this kind of topic of experiential marketing, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on it as someone who lives in sort of the physical event space.
I don't have many thoughts on it related to events yet. I think the Vision Pro in general, the best thing I heard about it was Casey Neistat, one of my favorite YouTubers, was like, this is the worst Vision Pro that Apple will ever make. So you remember when the iPhone came out and now we're on iPhone 15 or 16 and the difference between the two of them is obviously like insane. So I think that's what excites me the most about it is like, this is Apple's first iteration and knowing Apple, in 10 years, there probably will be a Vision Pro 10 that will have 10x the value. And it's already like, it was surprisingly like I think the thing that bugged me out the most was the eye movement. I didn't know that's how it was going to be working, where I could tell like where you were looking to select stuff. I thought you were going to like have to point or whatever. But yeah, I think that when it gets to the point when the Vision Pro is literally, I don't know, contact lenses or like more Ray-Ban-esque, but still has the same amount of technology in it, it'll be super bugged out.
Yeah, my buddy has it, so I got to take a look at it. I didn't get to wear it. He FaceTimed me, which was weird. He was like throwing me up on the side panel, and I was talking to his like AI version of him. Very weird vibes, but when I watched him use it, I think it like really, I do think I saw something different that I hadn't seen with VR because in my opinion, like the VR of the past was always kind of going to be a niche thing just because I put it on my head and I was like nauseous and my eyes were bleeding. So I don't know about the eyes bleeding part with this Vision Pro. It's hard to believe that you can have 8K beaming into your eyes for too long. But I did see a glimpse into like, okay, now I get it. Now I could see like, okay, VR, when it's a part of your world and it's making your world better, that's an obvious choice. And I think it's just going to come down to like, the factor of is it burning my eyes out, which I don't think people will care, but is it small enough to be like comfortable and user friendly?
Yeah, it's gonna flip the entire porn industry upside down.
Yeah, that my buddy did mention that, so I'm a little concerned about that because I think we'll see what happens. The world already has enough lonely guys, so we'll see where that goes. Let me ask you this. So I know you don't do a lot of virtual stuff, but what's your, knowing that Apple Vision Pro, things are headed at least somewhat that way, right? More virtual. What's your thoughts on sort of virtual events? And does POSH play at all in those today?
We don't. I don't think we ever will. Our whole brand is based around the value of in-person events. And I think something that excites me is as VR technology gets better, in-person events will only become more and more cherished and important and more powerful. I think like as social anxiety will go up, there'll be less connection between people. And so in-person events will just be that much more important and more powerful in terms of like asserting your brand over someone when everyone else is doing it in a digital capacity. So yeah, I hate is a strong word, but I really do hate virtual events. I don't think we want anything to do with them. And virtual events will get sicker and sicker and like will be really cool. But as that happens, I think it'll actually be a great like inverse effect where it will only make in-person experiences that much more important for people.
Yeah, I agree with you there. COVID is like the perfect example of, everything moved online, but then all of a sudden it became 10 times more like valuable to be in person because nobody
Yeah.
was. So I think that I don't know what the word is when you go against um,
Contrarian.
contrarian. Yeah, I think the contrarian perspective there is huge. I think that's smart because people are always going to go like brands. At least they should be thinking like this. Is like just like how you launch Posh. Like let's go where they're not, or let's go where there's an opportunity. And if everything's online, the opportunity is obviously going to be continue to be in person. And I think it's a cool perspective on like how can these technologies enhance the personal events? How can they enhance connections between humans? That's definitely something I like to focus on because if I go on the other side for too long, I can get a little bit doomsday in my own mind. So I love that that's your perspective because people like me need to hear that because I get a little bit, I try to like pan out, okay, how does this virtual, everything's moving online. Now everybody's moving online. Now they can experience things that are real in their world. It's like, where does that end? I don't know, but people like Posh, we need to keep people together. So thank you for doing that. Appreciate you. Cool, man. So I want to get to, I know it's your birthday today. So I wanted to ask you, what do you, what's like been the biggest learning for you this past year, of your life? Specifically, it can be specific to Posh, but it can be, really anything.
Wow, deep question. I feel like I was talking about this with my friends the other day. Biggest learning. Um, Biggest learning the last year. I would say, well, I'll give you from business and then from personal. From business, I would say the biggest learning from the past year is that um, once you scale an organization past like 10 to 20 people, and you get to the point where as a founder or manager, you're not actually doing any of the actual work, I guess, per se. Like when I started Posh, I was coding all day, every day, and I was designing all the time, and I was making the videos. And then like we got an engineering team, so then I didn't have to do coding anymore. And then I was just designing and doing some videos. And then now we got a product designer, so I'm not doing designing anymore. My job transitioned into 100% management. And I think like the entire business rides on the founders and the like C-suite and executives being phenomenal managers. And then what gets really trippy is when you become the manager of managers, there's this trickle down effect where like however you are as a manager is how the people that you're managing are going to be as managers. And at Posh, we do like 360 performance reviews every 6 months. So our direct reports have a chance to give us feedback. We give them feedback, and then there's peer feedback that's circulated around. But was really interesting. This was like the first performance cycle where there was a lot of managers of managers for the first time. And the feedback and like improvement areas that were identified for direct reports were the exact same that the manager of their manager identified for their manager, if that makes sense. So there's like this trickle down effect of like the key areas that need to be improved on and the key areas of success were very similar across the organization. And it made me realize how important it is for me personally and for my co-founder to like really care about the smallest little details of being a manager. And also like how far some of the simple things go, like just giving someone words of encouragement after a long day of work and being really specific about like what you appreciated about them that they worked hard on that day. So just like people feeling heard and communication and just being a great manager in general, I think is what I realized over the past year is my job now. And it really excites me because I think what's cool about management is I really don't think it's something that like going back to before, all these areas of knowledge have been completely democratized in terms of you can just go on YouTube and learn them super easily. I don't think that management will ever be like that. Like, obviously you can go learn management best practices or read books about how to be a great manager, but I think the only way to learn management actually is to just do it in and out, like, every day. And so I'm really excited to hone in on becoming an amazing manager, like, over the next few years. And I know, like, I'm just at the beginning of the road, but it's a really fun, like, area to grow in, just because it involves so much of, like, looking inward and figuring out, you know, like, who you are as a person, how other people are looking at you. So yeah, I would say, like, the biggest thing over the last year has just been focusing on that and trying to, hone in on it.
That's really good insight. I think that's something I'm still trying to work through as well, on a lower scale. I feel like one of the things I learned last year was the impact of one small decision, spread out over like, it could put your company back a full year. So this year, similar to you, I've been like trying to be more intentional with understanding the impact of a decision and how much it can radically change your business over the course of 6 months to a year. So making sure when those decisions are made, they're made with like the intentionality that they should have, which I think mirrors to what you're talking about, which is like when you're managing, that decision or that way or that style could potentially be compounded. And as you guys grow, it could become like an even more compounding effect the bigger the company is. So I think that's really cool. And I'm glad you're thinking about it. What's looking forward? So I know you mentioned you're looking forward to that, but is there anything else that you're really looking forward to in this next year for you?
So a lot's going on. We're hiring a ton of people. We just got a second floor to our office. But also personally, this is super random, but I've been making a lot of music, and I have a song with a really, really, really popular rapper that's like legendary in hip hop. And we're dropping a track. This is the first time I'm saying it publicly, but we're dropping a song that's related to VC and like tech and stuff. And it's going to be so fucking out of left field. No one's going to expect this, but it's going to be really dope. We like shot a music video, like 20-person crew, Hollywood cameras. It's insane. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to kick off like a whole new side of our kind of marketing rollout, and like also my personal brand aside from POSH. So yeah, that's like just a funny side thing. But yeah, with POSH, as always, we're super dialed in on just growing as fast as we can, making phenomenal hires. And yeah, I think the big focus for this year is talent. And like I was saying, the other side of management is the hiring side. So just picking the best, most passionate people is what we're really going to be focused on over the next 6 months. And it's also exciting because now that we've raised enough now where we have the budget to really hire like the cream of the crop, which is so exciting because some of the hires we've made over the last few months are just so phenomenal. And like when you hire someone that's way smarter than you and is an expert in their field and passionate about what they do, and like you don't even have to motivate them to get them to be super excited about everything. It's a crazy feeling because you just come into work and I'm seeing this little baby that we created a few years ago get turned into this monster by like the sickest people ever. So yeah, that's continuing to do more of that is this year, but it's hype. It's going to be sick.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm pumped to follow you guys. Also, if you don't mind me asking, hold on. What's the song? I want to make a note to listen to this when it drops. Is there a name, or how do I sign up for when it drops?
I'm not gonna drop the name or anything like that.
Okay.
It's all gonna, it'll be soon, in the next month, hopefully.
In the next month. Okay. So if I wanted to, let's say, know exactly when it happens, where do I follow? Like, where can people follow you? And then where do people get in touch if they want to like learn more about using POSH? I guess we can end with that.
Yeah, anything with POSH or with me, you can follow us on socials, posh.vip. My socials are just my name, Eli Taylor-Lemire. Yeah, Instagram. We're really big on Instagram. Do some TikTok too. So
cool, man. Well, first of all, man, I know it's your birthday, and sitting on a podcast with a stranger, not always the greatest thing, but dude, really appreciate you jumping on. Excited to see where you guys go. Loved your perspective, honestly, on a lot of this. And so excited to kind of watch you guys from the sidelines, and hope you guys crush it. So thanks again, man.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah, super fun podcast. Great questions. It's cool.